So because of the unique structure you have at CTCA, you've been able to get into some really interesting studies. And you and I were speaking about that just a few minutes ago. You recently were involved in a just-in-time trial.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit more about what a just-in-time trial is and what makes it unique and what makes it different and why you guys were the right fit for it?
Sure. So just-in-time studies, typically the manufacturers have only used the just-in-time model for those trials that have been really difficult to enroll, or they're kind of they need like 25 more patients, right? Like, how do we get these last 25 patients in? And so they haven't necessarily used it for, the kind of their whole portfolio of studies. And we like it because, now especially with cancer trials, the inclusion criteria has such specificity, especially when you're using, genomics. You see, okay, well, this gene is only present in 3% of patients that have this particular type of disease. So your pool of patients is, shrinks down to like hardly any. So if you were to do that in a normal feasibility, we'd look at it and say, okay, yeah, we only show 2 patients across the enterprise. Well, every once in a while, you might be one of those 2 patients. But if I'm doing this as a regular, traditional trial, they probably wouldn't have awarded me that trial because we're honest. And so we don't add like the inflation factor, like, oh, it's 2. So maybe we put 6 on the feasibility. If we only saw 2 patients, we put down that we would only ever be able to enroll 2 patients because there's no sense, opening something we can't enroll to. So because of that, you'll sometimes open these trials and they languish. They stay open and, we've got 9 months, 12 months and no patients. Right. And that takes, even though you think, oh, well, how much work can it really be? Well, it is. Every time there's an amendment, every time, there's any kind of change, you still have to keep up maintenance on that study. So just-in-time model is you don't do anything. You don't open the trial. There's no feasibility process. When you get a patient, you fill out a form, you send it in, they say, yep, the patient qualifies, and booyah, it's now all hands on deck. And so we can have a study from the time we've identified the patient to the time that the patient is actually dosed in 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks, with budget, contract, regulatory, everything completed, SIV, everything done, activation, patient and chair. And we actually did that for a first-in-man phase 1 study. This trial that we just did, we've had 3 patients this week identified, was it's a basket trial. So it's based on the mutation, and based on the mutation, patients get a certain type of therapy. And so serendipitously, when we had the study now, like several months, 3 months, and this week we found 3 patients. So go figure that it all happens. It usually happens right during the holidays. So they actually spared us this time. It was a month later because the last 2 years we've had a just-in-time trial right at the holidays. But we like it because then we're opening a trial that we know we already have a patient. The patient is identified. And so it's not just opening this thing and then having it sitting and, languishing. So, and then things get done faster because everyone's aligned around the same goal because there's a patient sitting there waiting to be dosed.